ready? Okay. We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. At this time, our clerk will read the roll.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco, Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick, Malik, Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Here.
Amobian, Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, would you please stand at this time as we are led in prayer by Councilman Freeman? I'm going to ask if Councilwoman Mosley will lead us in the pledge.
Okay, thank you, President Somerville. Let's bow together in prayer. Father, we thank you first off that we can call you by that name, Father. And God, we thank you that we are your sons and daughters. We thank you that your heart, first and foremost, is one of mercy and grace and desire to forgive. We ask, God, that you would impart that which we need the most this evening. And we pray that at the end of the day, we'd remember to give you praise, honor, and glory. And may you be honored tonight in thy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
on which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for
The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco, Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal, Amobian, Somerville.
Aye.
The motion to approve the minutes passes 12-0 with one abstention.
Before you is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco, Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik, Mosley,
Aye.
Neal, Amobian, Somerville.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes 13-0.
Before we move into our public hearings, I'm going to ask if we can just take one item out of order. We're going to have our clerk read in item 7A, Parks and Rec.
Item number 7A, offered by Lombardo. Resolution congratulating City Planner Dylan Garitano on winning the 2023 First Energy Marathon and sweeping all three events of the 2023 Akron Marathon Race Series and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo?
Yes, this afternoon we honored Dylan with his greatest accomplishment. From what I understand, he's gotten close in previous years, but now he finished first, and we're proud of that. And the whole city and your coworkers were all here to support him. So just wanted to congratulate Dylan on winning the Akron Marathon.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any additional comments at this time? Councilman Lombardo, what is the committee's pleasure?
It was a favorable report. Suspend the rules.
Okay, thank you. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. Councilman Neal? I think that would be nice if you'll be willing to make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor with a second. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco, Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This resolution passes 13-0.
And again, Dylan, congratulations. We do want to give you an opportunity to speak this evening if you would like to.
Well, I guess once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate the support, and I really appreciate it. And I think every day how lucky I am to live and work and be able to run in a great city that hosts such a great event. So I really appreciate it, guys.
We are now going to move to our public hearings. Our clerk will read in item number 1.
Notice is hereby given that the following open comment public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, October 2nd, 2023, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish an auto repair business at 1152 Grant Street.
Mr. Antonucci?
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. EHZ Limited LLC is requesting permission to establish an auto repair shop within this existing building at this location. Petitioner converted the retail structure into a garage. The north half of the structure's window system has been filled in with aluminum siding and doors been replaced with solid steel door. The submitted application indicates that the services to be performed on vehicles include engine and transmission repairs, brake repairs, electrical system repairs, and general maintenance. The petitioner intends to add additional parking on the south part of this property. Planning staff is concerned that the proposed commercial auto repair shop is not compatible with the surrounding residential and neighborhood-oriented retail uses. Garage repair shops tend to cause undesirable impacts such as noise and odors, and an excessive amount of parking could lead to a blighting situation. However, the planning staff recommends disapproval. However, Planning Commission recommends approval with conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to open up our public hearing. Do we have anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or against item number 1? Just going to ask that you please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
So we will begin with those wishing to speak in favor.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Apostolette. I'm always in favor of something that's going to benefit meeting the needs of the people for our possessions. I have no challenge with a garage because cars need repair. My concern would be is how will this benefit the community? What opportunities will be available for the citizens in this community? What employment opportunities will be available that will be fair and equal? Who will benefit in a low income or middle or working class family that has multiple difficulties financially? And noise factor and pollution factor, environmental factor is a concern. If there's a way to combat that where it's not offensive to the neighbors, where it doesn't build up environmental hazards, I have no problem with it. But if it's an option that it makes itself available for all of the citizens, not only in that community, but throughout Akron, that present even opportunities for people who are in school, elderly people, disabled people. There's too many businesses that are so corporately large that they're not meeting the overall need of every economic class. So I have no opposition to an auto mechanic garage being in a community, but it must not be detrimental and hazardous to that community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here in the audience wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening, members of council. My name is Brandon Costa at 967 Hereford Drive, Akron, Ohio, 44303. I'm an attorney. I represent the owner of the proposed project, EHC Limited. I'm an attorney with Buckingham Doolittle Borough, and I'm here to provide comment on behalf of this proposed project, but also to make myself available for questions. In 2018, the owner, Mr. Zawari, who is the sole member of EHZ Limited, acquired this property after becoming aware of the significant blighted influence that it was having on the surrounding area. At the time, there were several delinquencies with respect to the taxes, to the conditions of the property that were not in compliance with city rules, and it just overall was really an albatross in the area. Mr. Zawari has purchased, he has since renovated and made several additions to the property, to which now there is a significantly better appearance here in the area. Mr. Zawari is also owns property in the surrounding area. He owns a drive-through business that he does, in fact, actually work and manage himself around the clock, as well as additional properties. And he's also been involved in the community in this area for about 30 years. So we're all very excited about this project, and Mr. Zawari is excited to create something that he believes adds value. There are oftentimes, as we know, people have vehicles, but they may have to travel some great distance outside of their neighborhood that they actually live in to have their vehicle serviced. And I'd like to address the fact that, or the concerns that have been presented. Since 2021, we've worked directly with Akron zoning in order to address some of the concerns that could be associated perhaps with an auto body garage in a residential neighborhood. We have committed to creating and placing a fully fenced-in barrier between the residential houses, as well as putting up a fence that will fence in the vehicles that will be left and waiting for service. We've also agreed to limit the number of vehicles that will be at the parking lot or at the facility at any given point. We have also worked with our architect to incorporate the city's preferred landscaping buffers to ensure that there is an added degree of visible, I guess, aesthetically pleasing looks that is consistent with what the city considers to be standard. And Mr. Zawari has furthermore committed to resurfacing the entire lot of this area. This is the parcel directly adjacent to the subject property is owned by Mr. Zawari's brother, who is supportive of the project. And within the file, you'll find several letters that neighborhood residents have submitted in support of this project. And I want to just kind of echo some of the sentiments that they've said, that they're happy that Mr. Zawari has stepped up to take on this project, that this has been just a blighted presence in the community, and that they're supportive as well too. So with those things taken into consideration, I'm here to make myself available on behalf of Mr. Zawari and EHZ Limited, but also to ask the council directly for your support and ask that you do work with us to ensure that this will be the best project possible. Mr. Zawari is not a large-scale business owner. He, in fact, mans the drive-through that he works at himself, and so I anticipate that any mechanics to be hired at the audio body shop will be limited and in the initial phases, but it will also be proportionate to the degree of services that are being provided. So I can't necessarily address that as of now, but it's most certainly a priority that this is a local business doing local work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here in the audience wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak against? Seeing and hearing none, we're going to close our public hearing. Councilman Fusco, what is the committee's pleasure?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable recommendation with suspension of the rules. Kamer? Connor? Baylor?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Or the committee is favorable.
Thank you. Any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. I know that the ward council representative is in favor of this. There's 14 conditions that the petitioners have agreed to implement, and we're looking forward to this getting completed and provide this service for the community.
Okay, thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor. Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian. Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Notice is hereby given that the following open comment public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, October 2nd, 2023, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an oversized garage at 677 Cuyahoga Street.
Mr. Antonucci?
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. Jeremy Yoakum is seeking approval to construct an accessory structure in the rear yard of this residential property. The proposed garage would measure 32 feet in width, 60 feet in length, to a height of 24 feet. The proposed one-story garage would be situated over 160 feet back from the front property line and a required minimum 5 feet from the south or side property line. The petitioner states the accessory structure will be used for parking their personal vehicles, storage, and as a home workshop. Noise will be minimal, and the structure will not be used for activities that create odors. The construction of an oversized garage should not have a negative impact upon the neighborhood nor on this large 1.8-acre lot. Instead, it will be a solution to provide for personal storage of vehicles and will add value to the property and the neighborhood without imposing on neighbors. And planning staff and planning commission recommend approval subject to conditions.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to open up our public hearing. Do we have anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or against item number 2? Thank you.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. I do. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, we are going to open up with those who wish to speak in favor.
Yes. I'm definitely in favor of people having their homes organized and having their businesses in proper perspective. I asked Council President, I'm working on the abolition of slavery, and I'm going to bring it in to where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this is, does the city of Akron have the resources that a homeowner or a business owner needs when there is weather damage to their garage, when there is weather damage to their home? I would love for this person to have what they need so they can be neat and organized. But when it comes time for the repairs and the necessary things that need to be done, like weather damage, does the city supply anything for not just him, but anybody in the city who has something of this magnitude to, they don't get fined by the city and the city doesn't make money off of the damages that they may receive? Or do they have any resources for the community, for the people to maintain their property? And you probably can't answer me now, but I would love to see this person get what they need, but I don't want them to get it at the expense of a penalty if they don't have it. So I definitely support it. And I would like that whatever you give this person, that you would make it available for all of the citizens of Akron. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Yoakum, 677 Cuyahoga Street. My wife and I and our family, we live there, and we love North Hill. We love the area, and this garage that we're looking to build, it is for personal storage, and we just have we enjoy hobbies, woodworking, art, just fixing things in general, working with our hands. So the idea for it would just to kind of improve our quality of living at our house and kind of further grow our roots to the Akron and North Hill area. So yeah, if it's approved, that would be wonderful for us. If there's any questions I can answer, I'm here to answer them for you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak against? Seeing and hearing none, we're going to close our public hearing. Councilman Fusco, what is the committee's pleasure?
I'd like to pull a committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules. Kamer. Aye. Connor. Baylor.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Report of the committee is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. Reference this oversized garage is what we call it because in most parcels in the city of Akron, which is the typical residential 50 by 120 or whatever, this is oversized for that. However, in this particular case, this is a 1.8 acre site. So is it oversized? I don't know. I guess the eye is in the beholder. But with that, I would recommend approval this evening. I know the ward council person spoke in favor. Recommend approval. Thanks.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Notice is hereby given that the following open comment public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, October 2nd, 2023, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to place an oversized pole sign at 725 South Canton Road.
Mr. Antonucci?
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. Dairy Queen is requesting to install an oversized pole sign with an electronic message center, or EMC, on the lower portion. The proposed freestanding pole sign would contain a total of 45.6 square feet of area. The existing top static portion of the sign, which displays the Dairy Queen logo, would measure 6 feet 6 inches by 4 feet 3 inches for an area of 27.6 square feet. The bottom electronic message center portion would have an active area that measures 3 feet by 6 feet for an area of 18 square feet. The bottom of the EMC sign would be 10 feet from grade to meet code requirements. The overall square footage of the sign requested is consistent with adjacent building signage along this section of Canton Road. In addition, where the building facing the street with its wider facing walls, this sign would not require conditional use approval. Provided the EMC does not flash or scroll and remain static for a period of at least 8 seconds before changing messages, the planning staff and planning commission can recommend approval. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. At this time, we're going to open up our public hearing. Do we have anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or against item number 3? I'm going to ask that you please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in.
Yeah, you understand that you're still under oath? Apostolate?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak on this public hearing?
I don't
Okay.
think so. So Apostolate, you can approach the podium.
Thank you. I would like to, Madam President and council and everyone in the room, I'd like to approach this kind of as an interested person. I would like to see these restaurants to be held more accountable in our community. Dairy Queen or whoever it is that wants their signage, right now we're facing, in not just Akron, but all across everywhere, obesity. We're facing sugar diabetes, high blood pressure, a lot of health issues. Our economy is on a pendulum after this pandemic and many other things, bed bugs and all these other things. I would like to know what the signage is going to represent that's going to be a balance to make sure that our communities stop feeding into obesity. I mean, it looks good, but when you go to the doctor, it doesn't feel good. And I would like to know what the signage is going to represent. We can put all the colors we want to make things flamboyant and good looking, but we need to start holding these restaurants more accountable for our communities.
Thank you, Apostolate. At this time, we're going to close our public hearing. Councilman Fusco, what is the committee's pleasure?
I'd like to pull the committee to refer this item. Kamer? Connor? Baylor?
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
like to refer this item, just for the edification of all here in council, some concerns was brought forward from the neighborhood. I know that the ward council person, Mr. McKittrick, had spoke to one of the individuals who has some concerns. And of course, Mr. Antonucci reached out to the petitioners, going to work it out over the next few days, hopefully, and be able to address the concerns. So with that, we're asking for time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So time will be granted on item number 3. That concludes our public hearing. We'll now move into our old business, planning and economic development.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to request that we take time on 4 through and including 8. And I would like to pull the committee for a favorable report on item number 9. Kamer? Aye. Connor? Aye. Baylor?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Yes, the report of the committee is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. This is more of a formality, but it's a platting of 28 lots out of the 197 that this council passed for the River Woods development. And it memorializes what this council also added to the conditional use, and that was that 28 of the 197 homes are going to be owner occupied. And so what this will do is memorialize that, and it'll be filed with the county, so that everyone will be on notice that these are private property, will be private property.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Connor? Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick?
Aye.
Malik?
Abstain.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Amobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0 with 1 abstention.
Councilman Fusco?
Yes, the committee is requesting time on 10, 11, and 12. File number 13, so when we had just voted on Cuyahoga Street. 14, 15, 16 take time. And the report of the committee on item number 17, I believe that the clerk must read this in. This is a substitute.
Yes, item number 17 has a substitute offered as an amendment. That's going to be item number 6A under new legislation. It's an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish an apartment use at 133 Merriman Road and declaring an emergency.
Yes, the report of the committee is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. This is the apartment use as well as a restaurant use at 133, I'm sorry, wrong one, 133 Merriman Road. This is the one that we had a public hearing on 9/11 and had talked about. The petitioner is requested to create a space for the community as well as some spaces for the for apartment type uses for artists, etc. And there was some concerns that was brought forward to council, and I know Nancy Holland had plenty of meetings, a lot of discussion with the community, with the developer, and worked it out so that everyone is pretty much on the same page in terms of this development. So if you'd like to make comments.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. Thank you, Madam President. 133 Merriman Road is better known as HUG, Highland Universal Gathering Place, previously recognized in the community as the longtime home of Temple Israel. This location has historic meaning, deep meaning for the community and especially the people of Ward 1. This is a creative and exciting use of an historically valuable building. The introduction of apartments on site in addition to art spaces and performance spaces required some significant conversation with nearby residential neighbors, which has happened over a period of time. There are conditions now included in this revised ordinance that allow for some recognition that light and separation, including by an 8-foot fence, Also synchronizing outdoor activities and amplified sound to correspond with our municipal noise ordinance, that these are things that we do to reflect the idea of good neighborhood relations. There are other conditions within the revised ordinance. What this represents really, I think, is a great deal of hard work and good faith on everyone's part. Thank you.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
Councilman Fusco?
File items 18 and 19, as we've already voted on those. And the wishes of the committee on item number 20 is favorable. And we're asking for suspension. However, you must read this in first. I just remembered.
Yes.
It's another substitute.
This item also has a substitute offered as an amendment. It's item number 3 under the new legislation. It's an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a restaurant at 1221, 1225 West Market Street and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Thank you. Now I will say the request of the committees for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, again, this was, public hearing was held on May 1st, and it took some time, obviously, to work out some of the concerns that was levied from some of the neighbors, but there was a number of conditions that were added to do what we could in terms of resolving those issues that were brought forward, and conditions were added, and Nancy Holland may have further comments about this one as well. But this is another Ward 1 project that we're happy to see moving forward.
And thank you again, Councilman Fusco, and thank you, Madam President. Once again, what we're talking about is an historically significant building in Ward 1. 1221 and 1225 West Market Street generally refer to what we think of as Twin Oaks Estate, located on the very edge, western edge of Ward 1 at the corner of West Market Street and Twin Oaks. For decades now, this location has been used in a commercial way, principally as an office building where lawyers, accountants, and so forth have used the space for office purposes. This conditional use would involve a fine dining establishment on the main floor. Upstairs, limited small number of overnight accommodations. Originally, the proposal was for the carriage house part of this complex to be used as a microbrewery. There have been numerous meetings and conversations and conversations and conversations around this proposal. In the end, really this was a remarkable act of threading a needle and finding something that was doable, that reflected compromise and consideration from all involved. The microbrewery idea has been withdrawn by the owner and developer. No microbrewery. Conditions have been added here, including that, again, outside amplified noise will stop at 9 o'clock in the evening, in line with our municipal noise ordinance. There will also be an effort made to restore the longtime former left-hand turn from Twin Oaks. Other considerations include plantings and lighting amendments on the exterior that will allow for a tempering of any sort of intrusive lighting or whatnot that might affect nearby residential neighbors. Again, a great deal of time and consideration and many, many conversations went into this. I believe that this is a good outcome, and these conditions are also shored up by the inclusion of a performance bond, as is the case with 133 Merriman. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The rules have been, Councilwoman Amobian, did I see your hand?
I just want to add that I certainly thank Councilwoman Holland for all the work that she's done. And I just recall the meeting that we had here with the residents. I just asked that, I truly will support this, that we send a letter or some kind of notification to all of those residents to let them know what has been taken off and what is left. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Malik?
Thank you, Madam President. And first of all, in relation to Councilwoman Amobian's point, I do think some of that has been shared by email with affected residents. That's my understanding from speaking with some of them. But I just want to echo the comments of my colleague, Councilwoman Holland. I think, you know, when this first came in, there were significant concerns from neighbors, and they were very understandable concerns. It's a residential neighborhood, and what was being proposed was a lot. And I think this is a fair compromise. I think it will allow for the usage of what I'm understood to be a pretty nice building. And I think, you know, it will hopefully be something where we can hold them to the conditions and ensure that the impact on this really nice residential neighborhood is sufficient and doesn't have, you know, harmful influence, just as we want to on Grant Street, just as we want to throughout an entire city. So really hopeful and kind of happy to hear that this is the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Malik. Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you so much, Madam President. I want to emphasize that there has been so much communication to the residents from day one, going back to last winter, and multiple emails and multiple meetings and multiple communications. Although I am probably among those members of council who believe that there's no such thing as too much communication, I really do want to offer my assurance to my colleagues and to any member of the public in the room or watching this meeting at any point in time. The folks who've expressed concerns have been made aware every step of the way. I also want to add something that I think is really, really important in terms of a citywide sentiment about how we do things. And that is that much like HUG at 133 Merriman, this property that we're talking about has an important piece of Akron's history embodied in it. One of the conditions in this conditional use ordinance is that this property will be registered and protected under our local registry of historic places. Now, this may sound perhaps a little foofy or pearl clutching or frankly irrelevant, except that Akron's history is highly relevant and instructive in so many ways. More importantly, perhaps, than all of that is that this will protect this location in this building from a fate that we can only imagine, that this use and this continued protection going forward means that we have managed to hang on to something of value, and that it will continue to exist and be put to good use. I would only add that in the words of one of the greatest leaders in the sustainability movement, who just happens to be an architect, said famously, "The greenest building is the building that already exists." This is a smart move for a modern city that wants to stay that way and keep moving in that direction. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Amobian?
I appreciate everything that's been said, but please, please, for those people that came down here, please send in something in writing to them to let them know what is left, what was removed. It could have been the brewery that they were more concerned about, I don't know, but I just want them to know from us. Because one of the things I remember that night vividly was that those individuals said that nobody was going to listen to them anyway. And it sounds like they have been heard, but there was a nice compromise, and I just want them to know in writing what's left. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So at this time, the rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Connor? Freeman?
Aye.
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Oh, aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
Councilman Fusco, what is your pleasure on the rest of the agenda?
Time on 21, 22. Please file 23, and then time on the balance of the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Time will be granted. That concludes our old business. Before we move into our new legislation, we do have some special guests that are here with us from Global Ties, and so we do want to take an opportunity to recognize them. And I am going to ask Councilman Malik if you will introduce our guests this evening.
Thank you, Madam President. So tonight we are joined by a number of visitors from Middle East and North Africa through Global Ties in the U.S. State Department. And I had the pleasure of having the opportunity to spend a few hours with them earlier today between committee meetings and council meetings. We had a wonderful discussion about everything from safety and gun violence to how to provide hope and opportunity for young people, to ecotourism and adventure tourism that reminded me of our conversations around the Valley, to talking about female empowerment and empowerment for folks with disabilities. So I really appreciate the opportunity that we have with these discussions to have cultural exchange, to have dialogue and greater understanding and learning. And so really want to thank Global Ties. But I just want to take a second. We have visitors from Algeria, Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Kuwait, Libya, Morocco, the Palestinian territories, Saudi Arabia, and Tunisia. And I don't know if one of the members of the group wants to come up here to the podium and just speak briefly and kind of talk about what the group has been doing. I know they visited with Leadership Akron. They visited with the Young Democrats and Young Republicans. So I will stop talking and let my esteemed friend from Tunisia take it away.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you all for hosting us. Thank you, Council Member Malik. Thank you, City of Akron, for hosting us, Ohio, United States Department of State. We are very happy to be here. We are very proud that we came from places that are facing a lot of challenges and that we are learning from this experience. We are 16 young people, leaders or influencers, they call us, but we would like to say that we are people who love their countries and where they will do their best in terms of learning, give the time, energy to change the status quo, to change the situation that we definitely disagree with. The United States Department of State chose us to come to this program, which is a 21-day program, through which we visit Washington, D.C. Next stop will be Idaho after Ohio. It's been like 11 days now, they went so fast. And our final station, or final stop would be in Louisiana. Through these 21 days, we meet people, influencers, civil society activists, CSOs. We do workshops, trainings, and meetings, and try to learn and exchange as maximum as we can, and try to benefit from your experience. In this place, in this frame, this is what we call this place where democracy is practiced. Among the strongest things that we learned is how Americans, they would like to defend their democracy, no matter how different they are, no matter how different you are, no matter how diverse. But this democracy is sacred for you. You would do anything and not letting this democracy fail. We learned a lot from the issues you're facing and the solutions and the strategies that you'd like to implement to face the challenges like youth, gender, violence, poverty. And we learned, and the outputs and the outcomes from the meetings we had and the workshops we had will definitely help us to design new program. Our program is called Young Leaders Rise, and RISE stands for Renew. So we are renewing different concepts about what we see behind the screen. So the screen tells us many things about the United States, but the conversations we had changed a lot of things, so we are renewing. We are inspired, and we will inspire when we go back. We will serve, and we keep serving. We understand how strong civil society organizations and local associations, especially in the city of Akron, with the interactions we had, made us learn that serving is a must for everyone if you want to change the reality. And last thing is empower. We feel empowered. We had the energy. Every day we have a debrief about the people we meet. But even like the streets, fall is beautiful in Akron, by the way. It's very beautiful. We took a lot of pictures. And finally, in the Holy Book, the Quran, it said, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. In English it says, O people, we created you from a male and female, and we made you races and tribes so that you may come to know one another. The best among you before Allah is the most righteous. Allah is knowing and aware. And we are here to exchange and to learn. And by the experience, although we have many differences, although we come from different backgrounds, from North Africa, Middle East, and United States, but we share one thing, which is we have the same challenges, and we share the will to build peaceful environment and peaceful countries. And through these programs and exchanges, we build bridges, learn about each other, and learn from each other. Thank you all. Thank you for your contribution, and thank you for having us.
Wonderful. You did an amazing job. I want to open it up. I don't know if there's any council members that want to make a comment at this moment in time. Councilwoman Amobian, I see your hand.
Thank you so very much for that, because it just reminds us that we are public servants. We serve the people, we listen to our people, and we try to come here and establish laws that respond to what they want. And last night, when I was reading the agenda for today, I looked at the map so I could figure out all of these places that are on the continent of Africa. My husband is Nigerian. So we started looking, and I said, okay, I thought Jordan was in Africa, but it's actually in Asia. And so I was looking and learning, but welcome, and we consider ourselves a welcoming city, and thank you so very much for that. It was very inspiring.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, so again, we want to just welcome you to Akron. We hope that you enjoy your stay. And this program is so wonderful because it's all about learning from one another. So I'm excited for you guys' journey. I hope that it is something that you are able to take back to your respective countries of what you've learned here in Akron. So again, welcome. We're going to continue with the rest of our agenda, and we're going to move into new legislation.
Item number 1, offered by Freeman, ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $2,653,725.70 of bonds to pay in anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied, the property owner's portion of the cost of improving certain streets in the city, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman? Councilman Freeman, can you hear us?
Yes, the committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. This just allows us to issue a bond that will cover the owner's portion of certain improvements that were done to their streets, and that those monies will then be recovered as they are assessed over the next coming years. With that, we ask for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Connor? Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick?
Aye.
Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Amobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 2, offered by Freeman. Ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $52,168.24 of bonds to pay in anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied, the property owner's portion of the cost of improving certain streets in the city, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman?
Yes, again, the committee's report Did we ask for suspension of the rules on this, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay. Committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Similar to the last piece, this bond is issued to cover the property owner's portion of expenses when it came to our sidewalk program. And with that, we ask for its passage.
Okay, thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco, Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 3 was the substitute offered as an amendment that was already read in. Item number 4, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an outdoor advertising display on the east side of Sumner Street, south of I-76, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer.
this item will be referred.
Item number 5, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to file an application for, and if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the Economic Development Administration FY 2023 Distressed Area Recompete Program and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Request the committees for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Good, thank you. This may be of interest. We are applying for federal funds for, I believe it's $500,000, is the first phase for us to put together a plan for those in certain census tracts that will include possibly childcare, transportation, economic development opportunities, and that would be phase 1. The second phase would be, I believe, $20 million from the federal government to help us in terms of implementing this strategy, and I believe that's over a 5-year time frame. And so we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we would get this because it would be a substantial boost and it would help a lot of folks who could use this help. So with that, we're asking for passage and keep our fingers crossed that we get this funding. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. Councilman Neal, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate what I heard, but one thing that came to mind was the changes to the bus route with Metro Transit. And the citizens talked about how the changes were inconvenient to them. If we're so blessed to get this grant, I would hope that we would change the way we do things and include those who we are trying to serve in being a part of the solution. Right away, Bridges Over Poverty came. I don't know if any of you have participated in that. When I went through that, it's easier to have a job than to have to go through all the different stops if you're unemployed and you need all those services. It was unreal. So I'm hoping that if we're blessed to get this, that we change, that folks that drive cars won't be making decisions about bus routes, that folks that have jobs won't be making decisions that impact people who don't have jobs, that folks that don't need child care or have all the means to afford child care won't be making decisions about child care. Let's make sure that the people who are impacted are the ones that are forging this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Councilman Fusco, any further comment?
No, just that I know that there's been some preliminary meetings with all of the partners on that, the Metro folks from the Metro and the economic development side, as well as child care. So there's a team already assembled, and I'm sure Mr. Volleman will take your comments into consideration. Ask for passage.
Okay, thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Hamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 6, offered by Fusco and Holland. Ordinance amending Title 15 Land Usage in the Code of Ordinances of the City of Akron by enacting Chapter 155 Riparian Setbacks to protect the benefits of riparian areas by providing reasonable controls governing structures and uses in riparian setbacks and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Refer.
This item
However,
will be referred.
I would like to make one comment. This is the riparian ordinance that we've been talking about. Emily Collins has worked extremely hard on this, along with folks in the administration. This is an outcome of a commitment that was made in terms of the Riverwoods development to protect our waterways. And so it's good to see this come to fruition. It's like 15 pages long, though. It's very technical and scientific, if you will, and I know Emily will be here till the 13th at least, from what I understand. But I know she's been out to various wards in the city, as well as talking to various groups. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from a lot of folks, everyone ranging from the metro parks as well as the national park. So please look it over. It impacts practically every ward in the city. So this is again, bring those comments and questions forward, and we appreciate it. We'll be considering this down the road, though. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Councilman Fusco. Importantly, the document that represents this complex but at the same time straightforward ordinance is available right now on the online agenda of council, but certainly by tomorrow morning it will also be available on the City Council website, along with a set of compiled questions that were gathered from a 1-month period of public comment, during which Ms. Collins and others welcomed the public in kind of an unprecedented open door way to bring questions, to bring forth the hardest, most complex questions about the proposed ordinance. So the questions appear as compiled, along with responses to those questions. All of this will be available by this time tomorrow on the City Council website. These will also go out as part of the legislative spotlight information that goes out to folks who've signed up to receive it.
Yes.
Certainly worth reading, but I think it's fair to say, I hate to speak for Councilman Fusco, but I'm going to anyway. We're also available to take questions. Be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Holland. And just want to be clear that the legislative spotlight will go out on Wednesday, and we will make sure that information is included in there, okay? So thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
I believe we referred this item.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's
We
okay.
referred this item. Moving on to the next one.
Item number 7 is offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Cleveland Clinic Akron General Medical Center to provide the education and training necessary for fire division employees to achieve the required paramedic certification and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer,
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. The purpose of this is to provide education and training necessary for the fire division employees to achieve the required paramedic certification that they need.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor, Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland,
Aye.
Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Mallett,
Aye.
Mosley,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 8, offered by Mayor Horgan. Resolution declaring the month of October 2023 as Safe Sleep and SIDS Awareness Month, highlighting the risk of sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, among infants, the importance of safe sleep practices in reducing SIDS, and uplifting families with newborns, and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Amobian?
The report of the committee is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This resolution is declaring the month of October as a Safe Sleep and SIDS Awareness Month. And what we learned today is that we are doing a little better, not as well as we would like to do, but people need to understand there are several things that were mentioned today that I want to highlight. People need to understand that SIDS is defined as sudden and unexpected death of an infant due to natural and unnatural causes. And some of the unnatural causes are parents and others are not placing a baby on his or her back. They're not removing items like toys and pillows and blankets and bumpers and things in the crib. They are electing to have the baby sleep with others, whereas they should be sleeping in a crib by themselves. And there are a number of other things in the legislation that are important. But the important thing that we learned today was that if you place a child on his or her back to sleep on a crib by himself or herself, you will prevent a lot of these unnatural, unexpected deaths. And people also need to realize is that if you don't have a crib, there are free cribs at Children's Hospital. They're willing to provide the cribs as well as other items for the children. And so it's critically important. The other thing that this particular group that's headed by Mrs. Tamika Rose and Mrs. Charlita Smith from the Health Department, they're planning to try to do a PSA, educational sponsored, and they're asking all of us, those of us on the electronic, the virtual device, as well as all of us in chambers and everybody, to get the word out to parents and others that if you lay a child on his or her back in an empty crib with just a mattress and whatever's on the crib, the chances of the child dying are just very low. And this is something that people take for granted. And I think I heard my colleagues talk about in the past, it was the other way, that people used to lay children on the stomach, but they have learned over the years that it's important to lay them on the back, and that is the safest way. On October the 15th at Eggers Restaurant on Nome Avenue from 6 to 8 p.m., there will be a visual or memorial kind of celebration of those children that have died to celebrate their lives. And they're asking everybody in the city to come out. And that is October the 15th from 6 to 8 at Eggers Restaurant on Nome Avenue. Thank you very much. With that, we'll pass further.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any additional questions at this time? The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor. Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal. Homobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This resolution passes 13-0.
That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We're now going to move to public comment period. Do we have anyone here? We do have Apostolette, who is here in chambers. We do have some other individuals who have signed up to participate online. So if you are online, just going to ask that you please turn on your cameras and unmute yourself, and we will swear everyone in together.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do."
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we will begin in chambers, and Apostolette, we're going to begin with you.
Greetings again. A house divided does not stand. Some time ago, our first inaugurated president of the United States of America, along with some legislators, got together, and some people later on came up with something called the Constitution. And it's impacting Akron, Ohio, and all of the United States and this world. And I want to begin this evening by stating that the First Amendment must be reviewed again. A house divided does not stand. George Washington freed the slaves, the people that you don't own people, but slaves. His wife, Martha, did not. Therefore, the Corwin Amendment came into effect later on down the road and stated that slavery would never be abolished in this country. The First Amendment. I have written a lot of things to say to you this evening, but time will not allow that. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I hear the people come with their cries to address their grievances. Our United States Supreme Court has caused a domino effect and trickle-down effect, which has caused fear in the hearts of the people in legislation that must be addressed. I'm glad that we had some people that came this evening from another country, but we have work to do right here in Akron. I plead the blood of Jesus right now, Christ, over this city, over every act of violence and racism in this city. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution has denied we Christians our rights, not only to peacefully assemble, but to pray publicly. But it must be addressed because it's causing an upheaval in the city of Akron where people don't want to get along with each other and they're afraid of one another. Law enforcement is afraid of the people are afraid of law enforcement, and we need to relook at these things that are written. We need to bring them up to speed to 2023 because those people who wrote that back then are not here now. And it has caused a racial divide not only in the city of Akron, not only in the United States of America, but we have more enemies now in the world than we have ever had in time. It's time to review that First Amendment. My family member, Charles Coatsworth Pinckney, was one of the signers of that Constitution. And I'm here today to say it's time for change.
Thank you so much, Apostolette. Beth Vild?
Yes, hello. My name is Beth Vild. I live at 1111 Cary Avenue, Ward 9. I am the CEO and Director of Programming for the Big Love Network. I am here to talk about the long anticipated riparian setback ordinance. As we work on environmental racism throughout the city of Akron, excited to see this important legislation come through. It is legislation that has been sorely needed to help guide development within the city in a way that looks towards a sustainable future for our generation and many generations to come. As we continue to develop, we also have to balance that with considerations for people and planet's health and well-being, as one correlates to the other. This entire legislation is a critical action of compromise and continual compromise throughout every piece of what I believe Jeff said was a 15-page legislation. This is a piece of legislation that's been better informed through a public feedback process and conversations with regional experts. Very glad to see that the city had a feedback system before this hit City Council. though we would love to see that continued and inclusive of more survey work to kind of break up the 15 pages worth of information that can both include quantitative and qualitative responses to give better data and better feedback to legislation. We are very glad that Emily shared with concerned citizens and groups the feedback and found that the regionalistic experts at Chagrin River Watershed partners that we helped to provide were helpful in revising pieces of this legislation. We want to also encourage that we continue to communicate with regional experts as we move forward in such important work that affects all of us, such as our drinking water. There were a couple of important pieces of feedback that were given that I wanted to repeat and amplify, showing the value propositions and economic benefits to property owners would be an important tool to help property owners understand this legislation and feel more comfortable with it and excited about it. And at some point, we as a city have to look at our nuisance provisions and instead of using punitive actions, work towards more incentives that create that critical step in good placemaking of lived observational input.
Beth, I'm
It is
sorry,
also
your
important.
time is up. I was going to try and let you finish your last thought there.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you
Thank
so much. And I do believe, Zach, are you online with us?
Yes.
All right, so we're just going to ask that you be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Zach, you can begin with your comments.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. I am Zach Friedoff, the Executive Director of the Big Love Network and Ward 1 resident. I wanted to start real quick acknowledging that today is the International Day of Nonviolence, as well as the celebration of Gandhi's birthday. And in that spirit, may we find the will to look at our own lives honestly and clearly and find some way to step into the dance with the change we most deeply wish to see in the world. I'd like to use the rest of my moments here to deeply thank Emily Collins and all of the others who have not only brought forth the riparian setback ordinance, but how it was brought forward. This is good legislation that's been made better through the process of working with community organizations, local and regional experts, as well as community members. We hope that this is a new precedent in how legislation is formed in Akron. The community engagement input and involving local experts at the beginning of the process is the new model for best practices. We also really enjoyed working with Emily. We've on a few different projects now. We've had an opportunity to work with her, and she's always been willing to listen and engage, even when there were tough questions, even when there were high passions, and even when her role didn't really allow her to be able to make the changes that were being asked. So this legislation is it's a good compromise. We're always going to ask for better incentives and enforcement to try to bring about a more sustainable future for our city. But this is a healthy, helpful, and mature step forward. And we wanted to say thank you for this. And again, I hope that that continues how we move forward. One thing that has come up through this process that is not just about this legislation, but I've seen throughout many different departments and other regulations that have come forward is bringing to light an issue around the community complaint process being a sort of major tool of enforcement. There have been many abuses of complaints, especially against outspoken members of the community, whether they be from environmental social justice causes or just grudges within and amongst neighbors. And I think the example of that should be give an opportunity to this body to really dive in and think about new ways of working with this to find better solutions. And I know it's very challenging, but I think together we can find ways and we can innovate as our city so likes to think of itself as. So thank you.
Zach, thank you so much for sharing this evening. I think we have one other person who signed up. Are they online with us?
They have not joined the meeting, Madam President.
Okay, so thank you so much. So that concludes our public comment period. We're now going to move into our committee assignments, rules. Councilman Freeman.
That would be 2 p.m. on 2 weeks from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety, Councilman Kamer.
2:15.
Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
3 p.m.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Lombardo.
1:45.
Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilwoman Mosley.
2 p.m.
Housing, and we already did that one, I'm sorry. Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman Freeman.
2:45.
Is there anything else coming before council this evening, Councilman Malik?
Thank you, Madam President. Just briefly, I wanted to say, I know we've talked a lot about the marathon, and we're very excited and glad for Dylan. You know, the marathon, I think, is the 21st year now that we have the marathon, and it only happens because of hundreds of volunteers and a lot of our members of our Akron Police Department and Akron Fire Department. And so really want to thank each and every person who took part in making this event happen. It's a beautiful event winding through downtown, North Hill, Firestone Park, and West Akron, and really one of my favorite days of the year. So just want to thank everyone who helped make it possible.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Mosley.
Thank you, Madam President. This past Thursday, I believe it was September 21st, during my ward meeting, it was focused and centered around the overdoses that we've experienced, as well as mental health in North Hill. What I realize is there's a gap between cultures and communities in North Hill, and I think that's something that we probably need to address, seeing that we seem to have an influx in overdoses in North Hill. I think I had one Nepali family show up at the meeting. Most of them were families from the other parts of the ward, whether East Akron or South Akron. And I think it's really just a gap and there may be, you know, a language barrier that I think that we need to really think about, especially when there's this crisis going on up there. We are working on doing a pop-up in North Hill here in the coming weeks, but while we're on vacation from council next Monday, we will be doing a pop-up in East Akron. I want to give a shout out to Donna Skoda, who in a moment's notice, she supplied me with fentanyl test strips. I have Narcan that we've been distributing to families and making sure that we cut down on the barriers of people thinking just because you take a Narcan kit doesn't mean that you're a user, but someone you know may be, and you may be the very person that saved someone's life. So we're going to be doing these pop-ups across the ward until we run out of Narcan, because I think it's really important when we look at the numbers. We all get the emails. Addiction does not discriminate, and it does not stay in one ward. It's across the city, it's across the county. And one of our reports, they were 18 to 34, but one of the reports I just received, they were over 65 years old. So now we're not talking about young people, we're talking about there's no age limit here. So we will be doing a pop-up on this coming Monday on the corner of Chittenden and 7th Avenue from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. We'll be handing out Narcan test strips, fentanyl test strips, and Narcan kits, and we'll have someone there to show them how to use these kits, because I think a lot of it is people don't know how to use them, so they're afraid to use them, and there's a component where people think if you don't know how to use CPR, they're afraid to even give the spray. But this, I think, will cut down on that. It definitely helped at our meeting on Thursday, this past Thursday. One of the gentlemen that was there, he had just lost his son, and his son was 55 to overdose. And they had said that his was probably laced in marijuana. And I think there's this misconception that people think it's not marijuana, but it is. And so we want to do our part in Ward 5 and making sure that we get the information out there, and making sure that even if you don't have them, get them. Just call over to the Public Health Department. Donna has been very, very, very gracious with making sure that we get these as well as the test strips. And then lastly, I know we always have these month of something. This has to be more than just a month of mental health and addiction, because it's something that is really affecting our young people and not our older people at an alarming rate. Lastly but not least, there's an email that we all received about a webinar that is happening on October 25th at 1 o'clock, and it's about addiction and how to look for the different signs. And they're giving different demonstrations and different aspects of what to look for when someone may be having some addiction issues and may be in crisis. So I could forward that email if anyone wants to join in on that call, but again, it's on October 25th at 1 o'clock, and it's on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam President. A few things. One, when I saw Attorney Costa, it made me think of the article that was in the Beacon about the Citizens Review Board information that was supposed to be coming before council. And it asked, why hadn't it come before council? If we can get an update to address, I mean, the citizens worked very hard to bring that before us. Why we haven't looked at it, when we will look at it, that would be good to know. Secondly, we passed on the consent agenda the resolution that requested that citizens provide a safety plan. And I want to urge that this body request that the safety director have the city provide a safety plan. When we have, I'm going to just use Hawkins Park. If you do not instruct citizens on how to just park on that one strip between Slauson and Stoner, where they park on both sides, an emergency vehicle cannot get through. And there are elderly people that live on that street. You know, if someone has a heart attack or anything like that, minutes count. Our safety forces need to be able to know the entrance and exits of areas, so that if there's a safety vehicles need to get through, they need to know that. Again, how, based on the crowd, how many people need to be there? There were things said during the discussion about just the communication within, amongst council members and within departments. The article that talked about us having police moving towards or working with Park and Rec to have police at the park. The chief said he hadn't heard anything about it. So even us having communication within, but I know it's critical that those who, from fire to police, look at our parks, understand when you rent the John S. Knight Center, based on the crowd, they tell you what you need to have. We need to have standards that we put out to our citizens. And the communication thing is critical, because when a young man was shot at Hawkins Park, every meeting I asked, are we going to review our permitting process? And we didn't look at it till after the shooting at Lane Field. If we had done it before then, we wouldn't have had to be concerned about possibly that young person being shot. Because somebody said, well, hey, wait a minute, Parent Pee Wee, they automatically have police at all of their games. This other league didn't. You can't leave it to citizens, because one group knew from historical practice that you needed police, the other group didn't. If we as a city had put things in place. I talked to one of my colleagues in Youngstown. They have private security that they vet. He wasn't pleased with, he felt the service could be better, but at least they mandate that they use private services. When someone rents their park, there is a city employee at the park. Just like if you rent any one of these venues to have a party, there's going to be someone hosting someone that's a part of that venue that's going to be there in case you have questions or something needs to be done. So we need to make sure that the city puts forward a plan and not leave it to citizens, because that's not going to work. And the communication has to be clear. Last but not least, at the ward meeting tomorrow, I spoke last week that Dr. Curtis Kojo Williams will be speaking in regards to the Voices Over Violence Initiative, which is a collaboration between the juvenile court system, ADM board, and grassroots organizations. Also, another person that understands collaboration and wraparound, Dr. Joyce Penfield, who has spoke here with us, will be presenting on Moms That Demand Action, and she will share on the SMART program, things that people can do now to prevent gun violence in their homes and in their communities. And one of the things that we're doing is reaching out to organizations that are working to address this issue, to create collaborative networks. It's not enough. We have to have shared metrics, shared means of communication. So for those who are interested, you're invited to come out to the meeting tomorrow to hear from those two speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And just before we adjourn, I did attend the Citizens Review Board meeting, and they are still deliberating their rules and procedures. And so once they have come to an agreement, that document will be coming before this body, just so that you know, okay? Is there anything else coming before council? We do want to just let everyone know we will not be in session on next Monday as we observe Italian American Heritage and Culture Day. Is there anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion on the floor. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.